I'm Marc Gallegos. I'm a remote gaming support technician, and I've been a microcomputer electronics technician since 2005. You may know me as Marc G in Slack. I'm a student mentor guide with the Grow with Google Udacity Scholarship. Today, I'm going to walk you through stage 1 of the inventory app project. Let's get started. As you can see, I opted to go with a bare bones interface with a single activity, an activity class, a contract class, and a helper class, and a simple layout for the menu. It's pretty much just a container to display the returned cursor with only enough code to create and read data from the database. It's similar in build to the early Pets app. This one actually was built alongside the Pets app to save time for me, and it allows the lessons to sometimes sink in better. This is my styles directory. I didn't do too much. I made to make the text stand out a little bit against the background, I added a little bit of drop shadow to it. That you can see right here. That and I tweaked the margins around a little bit on it. But you can see that's the styles for my fab. It doesn't have any code inside the catalog activity, nor does it have any anything in an editor. There's no editor in this. There's no editor activity, no menu and menu editor. It's just real bare bones. Let me see. These are the strings, the app name, the strings for the menu itself. Like when they pop down, that's what you're seeing right there. And then that's one of the requirements is that it's able to add data. And my daemons folder, not much in there really. It's a real simple app. I have some colors saved for the drop down, for the app bar. And as far as the layout wise, it's real simple. One thing that is important for this project app, structure hierarchy is really important. You need to create the files in the correct places in the file tree in order for it to work correctly. Like for instance, our menu package. We create it directly off of the app package at the very top of the hierarchy, and we do that by right-clicking at the very top and go there. And you can see package is the one that has the little dot in the folder. It's separate from the directories. Let's see. And if we go into that menu package, we have our menu underscore catalog XML, which we created. That is just a real simple layout that it tells the framework how to display the menu items. And let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much just our layout for the app bar menu. It allows the user to add the placeholder data and in the later stage to delete all the entries from our database. That's not required in this stage. Then what we do is we create a data app package off of the app or a data package directory just off the app package. And inside this data package, we put our contract and our helper. Let me see our contract. We've got that named Comic Contract. It's a comic book app, as you can tell. It contains our required. Let me see. It contains a required inner class named title entry that per rubric it implements base columns. That's also required. This inner class, that's where we set the schema for the database, and we define the table name and the column names, which it's basically just documenting how the database is arranged, and the order and constants we use to create, read, update, and delete our data into and from the database. Schema, you'll notice it's present throughout the database code, and it's to be maintained throughout the database. The common contract. The contract essentially, it just gives us a single point to reference for both the database elements and for us when we need to update this database. The string constants prevent errors in the SQL statements as they have to be exact. Incorrect white spacing in the SQL, it can cause your data to not be accessed properly. It can even cause a runtime error where the app may not load fully enough to create the logs that you need to help debug and figure out what's going on. And sometimes that can be real frustrating. Let me see. As you can see, the comma contract, it's just our column names, our constants essentially. It's a container of constants for us. It has our table name, it has the ID, it has our column names in it, and this is the area where it's our one place to go to be able to change our column names quickly and easily. It's super painless for us. And let me see our helper class. Our helper class, we've named it ComicsDB Helper. It extends SQLite helper, SQLite Open Helper, I'm sorry, and utilizes display database info to display the database. Per rubric, you can see all the strings that it's utilizing to, or should I say, our constants that it's utilizing, and it's concatenating to be able to feed the input in correctly, because any little spacing off right here could crash our app or cause it to not display correctly. Let me see. Yeah, per rubric, it overrides the onCreate method in order to create our SQL statement. And we use that string to create the items table for our database. And as you can see, we use our title entry dot our constants, and then the type of text, and then telling it that it can't be null. And if it has a default that it can't be, that we want there, if it can't be null, what that default is. It shows us the type of data that we're using. And we're going to want to maintain this order, like you notice how we have it: product name, supplier, supplier phone, price, quantity, section. That's how I have it listed throughout my app. That way they all come in the exact same order every time that I use those constants. Let me see. Our log statement, that lets us know the activity, the database, and then it lets us know the string that's being created right here. It also overrides the onUpgrade method per rubric. It takes in the database and both old version and the new version to compare and find the most recent of the two. And if a newer version exists, it drops the database. And for the meat and potatoes of the app, the catalog activity, it extends app compat activity. Actually, we'll skip over to the XML so we can get that out of the way real quick because it's super simple. Our catalog activity just has essentially a text container, and it has the fab button. And like I said, there's no code to the fab inside. You'll notice there's no code to it inside the catalog activity. Otherwise, it would cause an error, and your app can't have any errors. So I removed the code to it. I left the fab on there when I did turn it in, but I didn't include any code as that would cause an error, or to comment it out would be creating commented code. So I just removed that. I left the fab button in place. It doesn't function. The icons, they're real easy to do. You go to your res folder, right click it, go new, go down to your icon pack drawable importer. And what that'll do is that'll open up the importer. It doesn't look like it'll do it though while I'm presenting. And let me see. Now that we've got that out of the way, the actual activity. Alrighty, like I said, it extends app compat activity. We declare our helper class, which onCreate uses in order to access our database, instantiate the open or SQLite open helper subclass, and then pass our activity as context. And let me see. Our insert item method. We're also calling our display database info, which you'll see shortly. That displays the information that's inside of our database, the information that we're trying to load and demonstrate that we know how to manipulate it and we know how to actually use this in our apps. Let me see. The insert item, it puts our database into write mode, and then what it does is it creates the content values object. The column names are the keys, and the attributes are its values, like product name and then the title, the supplier's name, supplier phone number. I believe that's a great lady named Jenny. She picks up. She's one of their best operators. The price, those are integers. The bottoms. Let me see. And then like I said before, in these areas where we're actually feeding info in or pulling info out of the database, the spacing and syntax is critical for the SQL statements, hence our use of the constants. Then passing in our subclass, table name and values from content values. We then insert the newly created row we create into the database, getting the row ID back in return. This null parameter, it lets the Android framework know that if the content view is empty, not to insert a new row into the database. Let me see. And our display database info helper, it gets the database into read mode, and then it creates a string projection. The string projection is our column names that also follow the order of our schema. The database query cursor then takes in this projection and the table name and finds the text view container right there to set as the display view. And then our try loop builds our header from our column names and concatenates it into a statement, and which it appends into the display view container, our text view that we have set up in the catalog activity. We then get the indices of our columns and bind them as integers. Then our app iterates through all rows returned to us in the cursor, extracting the string or integer value of each current row along the way. Values from each respective column are then appended to our display view in the order of our schema. And finally, maintaining good practice and meeting another rubric point, we close out our cursor to release valuable system resources for other processes. And let me see, under the insert item method, we have methods for our menu, and we override on create options menu, which gets our menu underscore catalog XML layout, and it inflates it into the menu. And let me see. And then lastly, we override our on options item selected with a switch case to respond to menu selection by the user. In the case insert dummy data, in case that view is pressed, we call insert item and display our database contents via display database info and return true. In the case our user selects delete all entries view, as the lesson doesn't cover that for this stage, we do nothing, return true, and return super. And my manifest. Lastly, we have the manifest, and it's just real simple. Have the label. In this stage, you don't need to do anything to the manifest. Other than that, it's pretty simple. You pretty much just gotta maintain your schema and stick to the way you have your database organized every time you call it. Keep an eye on that syntax and the spacing. Keep a real good eye on that white spacing for your SQL statements. Use your constants, and you should be good to go. Stay audacious.